Regardless of what you think about their product, fans should really just rejoice at the mere existence of All Elite Wrestling. I know wrestlers certainly do, since it gives them a proper viable alternative to what was once upon a time the only real game in town. Wrestlers who previously worked for TNA must be extra thankful, since they know full well just what the old alternative used to be. And that's because many who made a big splash on the AEW roster barely made a ripple in TNA waters. I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic Wrestling, and these are 10 AEW stars wasted by TNA. Join us. Number 10, Colt Cabana. Look, Colt Cabana has never exactly been hurting for work and has in fact been one of the most in-demand independent wrestlers of the past 20 or so years. However, when it comes to giving Cabana a global spotlight, only AEW has really taken advantage of his talent and experience. His WWE run as Scotty Goldman was short and unmemorable, while TNA never really gave Colt a look in, despite them bringing him in to see his work firsthand on 2 different occasions. Cabana did the job for his best friend for life CM Punk at the January 1st, 2003 Explosion tapings, and then was brought back and put over TJ Perkins in a dark match/tryout prior to the September 22nd, 2009 Impact taping. Years later, Colt commented on the experience, noting that the match went well and the crowd were chanting for him throughout it. However, when Sean Daivari asked then-writer Vince Russo what he thought, Russo replied, "What am I supposed to do with this guy?" and his fate was pretty much sealed. Cabana has been All Elite since 2020, and these days not only performs as a wrestler, but also dispenses his veteran wisdom in his role as a backstage producer too. Number 9, Cody Rhodes. Fed up with portraying Stardust and feeling like his WWE career was going nowhere fast, Cody Rhodes decided to bet on himself and asked for his release in May of 2016. Armed with a list of people he wanted to work with, Cody hit the indie scene with a vengeance, re-establishing his reputation as one of the most promising workers of his generation. Many assumed that Rhodes would make one of his homes in TNA, but curiously, he only wrestled 4 matches total for the promotion. Years later, Cody noted that he only showed up in the Impact Zone as a favor to Josh Matthews and to help his wife Brandy get started. He also commented that the Team Canada guy, meaning Scott D'Amore, gave his parking space to Alberto El Patron, which he joked led to him committing to Ring of Honor, which then led to All In, which then led to the creation of AEW. At least I think he was joking. I mean, I'd love to live in a world where Cody losing his parking space indirectly resulted in the creation of the world's new number 2 wrestling promotion. As one of the AEW EVPs, Cody was, of course, a major star there before deciding to return to WWE. Number 8, Jon Moxley. Prior to WWE snapping him up, TNA had the opportunity to offer a young Jon Moxley a deal. Moxley had done a few job matches for WWE on shows like Heat and Velocity when TNA decided to bring him to the Impact Zone for a non-televised dark match prior to their November 11th, 2008 TV tapings. They put him over too, as the future Dean Ambrose defeated Lamar Braxton Porter in a little under 5 minutes. In an interesting piece of trivia, Porter would subsequently have a short run in FCW in 2010, where he would score a tag match victory over Mox's Shield buddy Roman Reigns. TNA evidently never gave Moxley, who primarily worked for indie outfits like CZW, IWA, and HWA prior to inking his WWE developmental deal, another thought. Well, that is until he made it big years later, of course, which compelled them to release footage of the dark match. It was standard stuff in truth, but you could see that Moxley had something about him. He certainly proved that many times over in the years since, and is now considered one of the cornerstones of All Elite Wrestling. Number 7, Eddie Kingston. Motormouth New York native Eddie Kingston wrestled for TNA, Impact Wrestling, and hell, he even competed for the Global Force Wrestling World title, which was the most prestigious piece of gold in Global Force. Well, almost. The Mad King first rocked up in 2016 as a member of the Death Crew Council. Teaming with Bram and James Storm, Kingston attempted to get his hands on the TNA tag straps, but the DCC couldn't get the job done and they soon slid down the card. Eddie left and then came back 6 months later as Latin American Exchange member King. He helped guide Santana and Ortiz to the tag titles before the storyline saw him leave LAX and join up with original LAX members Homicide and Hernandez as the OGs. release. After the OGs did the honors for the new LAX, Kingston once again departed. He almost retired from the business entirely due to the pandemic before AEW offered him a contract in 2020, finally giving the indie warhorse a proper shot on the big stage. Number 6, CM Punk. Who's this baggy shorts-wearing blonde-hair whippersnapper, eh? As well as Ring of Honor, MLW, and a host of other indie promotions, CM Punk spent some of the early 2000s trying to make a name for himself in TNA. It wasn't exactly a long run, and Punk mostly tagged with Julio De Niro as a member of Raven's stable, The Gathering, until they turned on their leader. The straight-edge superstar was also aligned with Alexis Lurie at the same time, someone who would go on to become a TNA mainstay as Mickie James. As for Punk, well, he basically numbered his days after he got into a scrap with Teddy Hart outside a local Nashville restaurant. His tenure officially came to an end when TNA and Ring of Honor severed their working relationship in early 2004. To be fair to TNA, Punk wasn't exactly the polished worker he would become in later years, even if the potential was clearly there. The former multi-time WWE champion's stint in AEW, on the other hand, yielded many highlights, and he was used well by Tony Khan's company, even if it all did ultimately end in tears. Pfft, cry me a river. Number 5, Sammy Guevara. Inspired to become a professional wrestler after seeing Booker T and Rey Mysterio perform at a SmackDown house show in 2004, young Sammy Guevara decided to go right to his inspiration for his training and enrolled at Booker's Reality of Wrestling School in 2010. He gradually got more and more work on the indies, as well as a WWE dark match in 2015, with 2017 seen as a breakout year thanks to his performance against Joey Janela in the opening round of PWG's Battle of Los Angeles tournament. Clearly one to watch given his youth, talent and charisma, TNA, then named Impact Wrestling, were also happy to provide him with a platform that year. Guevara worked 2 matches for Impact, a Super X Cup first round loss to Drago and a tag loss taped for Explosion, where he teamed with Davey Richards to put over Drago and Taiji Ishimori. He ended up finding a home in AEW, and while his record is not exactly flawless, he is a former 3-time TNT champion and is often cited as one of the company's best homegrown stars. No stranger to controversy, Sammy got people talking once more when he went back to Impact for an appearance in 2021, but voiced his displeasure with the planned creative and was pulled from the show. Number 4, Trent Beretta. After spending almost 5 years in the WWE system, likable former dude buster Trent Beretta no doubt couldn't wait to show the world what he could do when the handcuffs were off. TNA's X Division seemed like a good place to do that, and Beretta showed up there not long after his WWE release. Wrestling under his real name of Greg Marashulo, in his first TNA match, he qualified for an X Division title Ultimate X match by winning a 3-way. He was unsuccessful in his pursuit of the gold, however, with Manic capturing the vacant belt. Almost a year later, he would be back in Universal Studios for another Ultimate X match, this time wrestling as Ace Vedder and defeating Manic to qualify for the Cable Crossing Spectacular, which he once again didn't win. TNA never tied Trent down as he continued to wrestle prolifically for other companies such as New Japan, PWG, and Ring of Honor instead. An AEW original, Trent's best moments in Tony Khan's promotion have been alongside his now former best friends Chuck Taylor and Orange Cassidy. He's yet to win AEW Gold, but he's a regular presence on AEW television and, still on the right side of 40, has plenty of time to do so. Number 3, Lance Archer. Tall, possessing a solid physique, and with a lovely head of hair on him, Lance Hoyt really did check a lot of boxes for what wrestling promotions look for in a top-tier talent. He first started making an impression in TNA, initially paired with Kid Cash as his bodyguard stroke tag partner Dallas. TNA intermittently tried to push him, and he was over with the Impact Zone faithful. However, nothing really stuck, and his time in Dixieland is best remembered for his tenure as a member of the Rock and Rave Infection. His post-TNA run in WWE was similarly disappointing, but Lance Archer really started turning heads thanks to his work in New Japan. It was the Murderhawk Monsters work overseas that must have caught the attention of Tony Khan and co, with Archer signing an AEW deal in 2020. He hasn't always been pushed as strongly as he could have been, but his presentation in general has allowed him to shine when given the opportunity. It's a damn sight better than twatting about with a Guitar Hero controller anyway. Number 2, the Young Bucks. Matt and Nick Jackson burst onto the scene in the mid-2000s and got over big in PWG in Japan's Dragon Gate promotion due to their state-of-the-art high-flying doubles act. Right as they were making a name for themselves internationally, TNA snapped the hot young team up. Dubbed Generation Me, the renamed Max and Jeremy had some decent matches with the Motor City Machine Guns, but really didn't do that much else in TNA. They stuck it out for a year and a half, but sensing that the booking committee had no idea what to do with them, they asked for and received their early release. While creative frustrations played a part, the brothers also cited monetary issues as a reason for wanting to leave and were so disheartened and cash-strapped by the end of their TNA stint that they considered quitting the business altogether. Thankfully, they didn't and are now EVPs and top stars in a promotion they helped found. Proving that they can reinvent themselves and move with the times, their latest heel run has been some of the best work of their careers, and they firmly cemented their reps as one of the best tag teams of all time. Number 1, Kazuchika Okada. They're just never gonna live it down, are they? Look, I'm not saying everyone at Ultimo Dragon's mum knew that Kazuchika Okada was going to become one of the very best professional wrestlers on the planet, but I think most of us could see that he deserved better than what he got during his learning excursion in TNA. Eventually repackaged as Okato to play off the Green Hornet film that bombed in cinemas around that time, Okada did little more than compete in pointless filler matches on Explosion before being pulled into the abysmal feud between Samoa Joe and the Pope D'Angelo De Niro. New Japan was so dismayed by the way TNA officials and creative had treated their prospect that it led to the relationship between the two parties souring, with TNA compelled to apologize for it years later. By that time, of course, Okada was the Rainmaker and well on his way to cementing his status as one of the modern-day greats. He's now swapped New Japan for AEW, where he's been treated like the major star that he is from the get-go. I'd still keep him away from Joe though, Tony, just to be safe.